On this channel, we've discussed weather modification technologies, large-scale optical illusions in the sky, and shady organizations that are trying to gobble up all of our land. And yet, what I'm going to talk about today might be the scariest topic I've covered so far. Since I have a habit of reading your comments, I know many of you keep up with these obscure stories that the mainstream media simply refuses to cover. That's exactly why I believe some of you might know about what Raytheon is doing in a US-funded facility situated in the South Pole. And if you don't know, you really should, because their actions are not only changing our present, but are going to have some drastic effects on our future as well. But before we even talk about what they're doing in that frozen landscape, let's find out what this facility actually is. And luckily, we have someone who has not only worked in this ultra-secret facility, but is also willing to talk about it without any hesitation.
I'm very happy that you're giving me this attention and this information attention because it needs to get out to the world. I will start, since we have to be brief. I have already given all pertinent information and supporting documentation to the Senate Intelligence Committee and Arrow. They informed me that all of my information will be recorded for public record and shared with Congress. It is that important. In 2010, I was selected to go down to the South Pole Station in Antarctica for an entire year by Raytheon Polar Services as an employee of a third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation. I function in a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more. The Ice Cube neutrino detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented.
So basically, Eric says he was working on behalf of the National Science Foundation, and his job took him to the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory that's located in Antarctica. One quick search will tell you that this observatory was developed by the University of Wisconsin-Madison and constructed at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. This project is a recognized CERN experiment. The observatory ice cube consists of spherical optical sensors called digital optical modules, or DOMs. And as for why we made an observatory in the middle of nowhere, well, according to their website, the facility was primarily designed to observe neutrinos from the most violent astrophysical sources in our universe. Now, so far, this observatory looks like just another one of hundreds of research labs that are located in the South Pole. However, according to Eric, the real purpose of this lab is far more sinister than any of us can even imagine.
The season that I was there, 2010 to 2011, we converted from construction to operations and maintenance in both the elevated station and the detector array. Unfortunately, when they first fired it up, that was when we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. There was 2 incidental shots before they were able to target it correctly. This is an earthquake generating device as well. This is the weapons of war that we have to deal with now and what Raytheon's hiding.
Now, the earthquake he's talking about took 185 lives in New Zealand and caused billions of dollars worth of damage back in 2011. I'm sure it sounds like a wild claim, but earthquakes seem to be happening more and more often in the South Pole. In fact, back in 2022, it was reported that there were 85,000 earthquakes of different magnitudes in Antarctica in a single year. Of course, it was also reported that this abnormal seismic activity was thanks to an inactive volcano, but if Eric's claims are true, that a big chunk of these earthquakes could be a direct result of activities at this observatory. The continent has also been recognized as a source of mysterious tsunamis over the years. Looking at all of this, it's not surprising why many people believe a whistleblower who's telling them why the earthquakes might be happening in the frozen wasteland. However, producing earthquakes only seems to be one of the functions of this facility. According to Eric, this observatory is also a prime example of a new weapon class.
I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each. That gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing. In addition to the ability to detect neutrinos and the exotic vehicles, I have provided documentation that shows that this is also a system for faster than light communications. In the past, Gary McKinnon has hacked NASA, found the off-world fleet, the list of captains, and it's apparent that if we have faster than light vehicles moving throughout this system, we're going to need faster than light communications. This is that facility. The Atmospheric Research Observatory is in what we call the clean air sector. I witnessed myself a very powerful green laser shooting out of the top of this facility into the cosmos. This, I believe, is a secondary form of long-range communications and or a defense system. I am not saying that we need to be scared of anything that's out there, but please understand the military-industrial complex is happy to invest all of your money in alleviating their fears.
Now, this part of his testimony is not only unsettling, but it's also fascinating in so many different ways. He's basically saying that these thousands of digital optical modules, or DOMs, that are embedded in ice act as a directed energy weapon system. Now, what are directed energy weapons, you might ask? Well, such a weapon damages its target with highly focused energy without a solid projectile. These include lasers, microwaves, particle beams, and sound beams. They're often referred to as DEWs on social media. Such weapons used to be limited to science fiction movies, but today they're very real, my friends, and pretty much all major governments have been trying to develop them. In fact, we've been developing them for years now.
Imagine the implications of a weapon with no visible trace. A weapon that could knock out tanks, ships, and planes as fast as the speed of light. The same technology with modifications could disorient and even tranquilize military personnel, rendering them virtually helpless in the battle zone. These are the new weapons of war we will examine in this series. For the past 40 years, the world has been riveted by the threat of nuclear war, and more recently by the prospect of space defenses using lasers and other modern technologies. But while both sides at the Geneva summit will be focusing on these matters, progress is being made in even newer weapons that could render any arms agreement relatively useless.
And it's not just these propaganda videos where you hear about these weapons. Our very own Secretary of Defense had this to say about these weapons almost 2 decades ago.
Secretary, can I ask you a question about some of the technology that you're developing to fight the war on terror, specifically directed energy and high-powered microwave technology? When do you envision that you can weaponize that type of technology?
Goodness. It is in, for the most part, the kinds of things you're talking about are in varying early stages. Do you have anything you'd add?
I don't think I would add much. I think they are in early stages and probably not ready for employment at this point.
In the normal order of things, when you invest in research and development and begin a developmental project, you don't have any intention or expectations that one would use it.
And recently, companies like Lockheed Martin have been aggressively trying to sell them to interested buyers with marketing campaigns like this one.
Lockheed Martin produces systems that do everything from detect the threats to identify the threats, determine whether it's a threat to the aircraft, and then employs the appropriate weapon.
Now, what makes these direct energy weapons so special is the fact that you can destroy a target with extreme accuracy from miles away. And this is exactly why so many people consider them responsible for what happened in Lahaina, Maui.
The recent fires in California, Australia, and now Hawaii are unlike anything we've ever seen before. They are being called forest fires and wildfires, but they are clearly something very different. These fires are burning homes into a white powdery ash footprint.
But despite the public mistrust, the Pentagon is now openly saying that it not only has these weapons, but also that we need to keep developing more to stay ahead of our adversaries.
I don't want to go into the specific capabilities that we're using to protect our forces, other than to say we have a wide variety, which does include directed energy capabilities.
Our near-peer rivals, China and Russia, seek to erode our long-standing dominance in air power through long-range fires, anti-access aerial denial systems, and other asymmetric capabilities designed to counter our strengths. Meanwhile, in space, Moscow and Beijing have turned a once peaceful arena into a warfighting domain. They have weaponized space through killer satellites, directed energy weapons, and more in an effort to exploit our systems and chip away at our military advantage.
After watching all of this, you tell me, does it sound so outlandish that they might be developing some of these weapons in Antarctica away from all of the prying eyes? And that's why I believe everyone should know about Eric's claims. Now, he also said that this directed energy system at the Ice Cube Observatory might be used to track and communicate with outer space traffic. We will investigate this particular claim in another video, but for now, I'll just say that looking at all of the confirmed UFO evidence, I don't think it'll be that crazy for the government to develop a system to deal with these visitors. As for how such a high-tech facility is powered, well, our whistleblower has an answer for that.
A question of power comes into play for all of these facilities that are present. I assure you, I knew what was going on. I knew the load demands of the facility, and all of these new items exceed the demand for the systems that I was presented. I'm doing due diligence and research. I believe there is either a secondary power supply there that is either nuclear, that was there prior to the start of the Antarctic Treaty, which prohibits such things, and or that there is some sort of exotic power supply system there that just is not in the verbiage of the treaty, so it negates the responsibility to the parties involved.
He's not wrong. Before signing the Antarctic Treaty in 1959, the U.S. military could have easily set up a nuclear plant in the area to power their experiments. We already know how desperate some people in this country are to stay ahead of the curve in weapons technology, so the existence of such a scary lab in Antarctica would certainly disturb me, but it definitely would not shock me. And folks, that's going to bring an end to this rather serious video. I'm not saying we should be scared out of our minds about such leaks, but we should be actively trying to learn about them because it's pretty clear the mainstream media simply does not want to discuss them no matter what. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.